one of the reasons that I homeschooled was because I wanted to be around my kids. And if somebody was taking a book and going to their room, or taking a book and going to a different room and sitting there and studying all by themselves, I mean, I was kind of missing out on some of that opportunity to be together.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Schoolhouse Rocked Podcast. I am Cindy West, your host this week, and I am so excited to be here with my very good friend and guest, Pam Barnhill. But before we get to chat with her about multi-age homeschooling, I would like to thank our sponsor, CTC Math. If you're looking for a math program that truly works, CTC Math has you covered. They offer easy-to-follow video lessons, step-by-step solutions, and interactive practice. With courses from kindergarten to calculus, it's the all-in-one solution for students of all ages. Parents love the progress tracking, and kids enjoy the self-paced learning. Here's a testimonial from Penny in New York. She said, "Since using CTC Math, my daughter has stopped stressing over math, and I find her actually enjoying it. Thank you so much for all you've done to help her find success in a subject she hated, but now enjoys." Sign up today at ctcmath.com and start your free trial. CTC Math, math made easy. Hey there, Pam.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's great to be back.
When I knew I needed to interview someone, you, of course, were at the top of the list. You're always at the top of the list because I count you as one of the experts in the homeschooling field. And what I think folks are probably recognizing about me in this space on the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast is I come with a very practical view of homeschooling. And I know that you also do that. So I think we're going to have a great conversation today. Can you give us a sneak peek into your homeschool journey, particularly on this topic of multi-age homeschooling that we're going to talk about? How did you get started with that?
So I ended up having 3 kids fairly close together in age. So when I had my youngest, my oldest was like 3.5, 4 years old. So I have 3 kids and they're all within this 4-year age range. And already by the time the youngest came along, I was doing preschool at home with the 4-year-old, and then her younger brother was like 3 at the time. So really close together. And so we started doing preschool together at home with just the 2 of them. And as the little guy got older, we simply rolled him in to everything that we were doing. And so my entire homeschool journey has not been, well, how do I figure out how to juggle history with a 3rd grader and a different history with a 1st grader and a preschool with a preschooler? We just all did the same thing together. And it was just a natural thing for us to all learn together all the time. And we just took it all the way up till my oldest graduated. And now my first year, this coming year will be my first year where I only have 1 student. And yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Well, that is exactly where I was a few years back. And I just graduated that last only child. And I tell you, when you're used to doing multi-age homeschooling, at least for some subjects, if not all, it becomes a new thing that you and that last only child have to figure out. So, I'll pray for you. It's great.
Thanks.
I felt like, no, seriously though, I felt like it was an awesome experience, but it was something to learn differently. So let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. I found kind of a natural progression in that. Do you feel like you have sent some of the graduates as they got into their high school years off on some of their own things so that you're not just abruptly hit with, hey, I'm not multi-age homeschooling anymore?
Yeah. So when they were little, we did like all of our content area subjects together. And we can talk about the difference between content subjects and skill subjects as we go on, because that's such an important distinction that a lot of people don't make when they're setting up and planning their homeschool.
Yeah.
But as my kids got older, they knew what they wanted to study, and not everybody wanted to study the same thing. So when they were younger, I was like, okay, next year we're doing mythology, or next year we're doing ancient history, or next year we're doing the American Revolution, or whatever it was. And I would kind of plan things out. But as they got older, I would have like 2 who were like, oh, we really want to do botany, Mom. And then this other one was like, no, I don't want to do that. And so They naturally became more and more independent, but that was fine because they were able to be more independent as they got older. And it wasn't as important for me to keep them all together. Now, we always did some subjects together. But as they got older, it kind of happened naturally that they broke out and started doing their own thing more.
Yeah, well, I definitely want to talk about that progression. I also want to get back to what you had said. We really need to make a distinction between the core subjects and what did you call the other part?
So there's skill subjects and their content area subjects. Okay. And this is just like whether or not you're going to do whole family learning with your family, this is such an important distinction to make. And skill subjects are those subjects where students need to enter into the subject at a certain point. You never jump into math starting with multiplication or long division, right? You always jump into math with a preschooler starting with like, one-to-one correspondence and counting. And, these three things are three things, whether they're far apart or close together, I forget what that's called, but they're like these preschool skills and kids jump into math there and they move through math in a logical progression where they learn one thing and then the next and then the next. And every child needs to start math at the beginning and work through that logical progression with very few deviations. I mean, you might take a break to learn about telling time or something, but you're pretty much walking through this progression. Content area subjects are different. And this is something like a history where sometimes we get it in our brain. Oh, you know what? Like we got to start with ancient history. But I'm telling you, when you have a first grader, ancient history means nothing more to them than like modern history does or the American Revolution does. Like it's all old stuff and they really conceptually can't fathom like the whole thing anyway. So you might as well just start with stories and people, and it doesn't matter what time frame. There's no beginning where you move through. You can start anywhere and go back and pick up older things or come and pick up newer things. Same with science, right? You don't have to start science with an elementary school student at any certain subject or any certain point. You can jump in anywhere with them and then learn about all the different things. So that's a content subject. So the reason why this distinction is really important is when you are combining kids and doing whole family learning, there is really no first grade history or first grade science or second grade history or second grade science. If you have a third grader and a first grader, they can all be learning the same thing. And there's no distinction. And so one of the things that we tell people to do is to sit down when you start planning out your homeschool and think about which subjects are skill subjects, learning to read, learning to spell, some areas of composition when you're first getting started, mathematics for sure, a foreign language, those kinds of things. Those are your skill-based subjects. They need to be entered into at a single point. You need to progress through them in a logical order. And everybody typically works on their own for the most part. Yeah. Content subjects, on the other hand, history, social study, any kind of social studies, geography, science, literature, that one is totally a content area subject. Everybody can be learning all the things together all at the same time.
I would say fine arts too. I did school for the most part this way too. I had a 6.5-year gap between the older two who did a lot together. And then that last one, he still joined us when they were younger. As my older two got older, I did have that only child. But I'm just going to tell you briefly what a homeschool day for us would have looked like, speaking of the content and the skills areas that you just did. And then I want you to tell me how yours was different. Okay. So when I was kind of homeschooling everyone together, remembering I had a 6.5-year gap, okay, it looked like morning time where we were all together, generally doing Bible study, poetry, geography. That's another one that can be done fairly all together with no real starting or end point. We did brain training games. And then after we had our morning time together, which wasn't an incredibly long amount of time, we would break off and everybody would be in those skill areas. They would be doing their own leveled math. When I had kids in phonics or spelling, they would be doing their own levels on those. So the language arts, they don't all have to be apart, but you can kind of think of language arts as something that I did skilled, where everybody had their own thing going on. And then we would pretty much come back together for our science, history, fine arts, nature study, field trips, cooking. And oftentimes, I think there's a word usage that people, they kind of get hung up on. Well, am I multi-age homeschooling? Am I doing unit studies? What am I doing here? I would call ours unit studies, because if we were working on something, I would just say, okay, well, we're studying ancient history right now, or we're studying the human body right now. But I don't think you have to call them unit studies. I think you can just say we do these content-based things together. So I want to know, how does or did yours look different than mine? And what did you call that together time learning?
Yeah. So how mine looked different than yours was we did all the together stuff first.
Okay.
Because once they did their independent stuff, I had kind of a system that I used for that independent work. And I always started with the youngest one first, and I would get him done, and then he was free to go.
Yeah.
And once everybody was gone, there was no getting them back to do other things. And so we front loaded our day with all of that together stuff. And we called all of it morning time. So our morning time was not just a few little things. It was not, just prayer and brain training and stuff like that. It included some of that stuff, but it also included the history, the science, the literature, the read aloud, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And a couple things about that. First of all, we didn't do everything every day. So that was the first thing. We didn't do history and science and literature every single day. So we did different things on different days, typically following like a loop schedule. And then the second thing was my kids did things while I read to them and while they responded to me. And so they were, oh gosh, rainbow loom, perler beads, watercolors, drawing, like all of those things, puzzles.
Lego blocks, magnets.
Yes. Oh, magnetiles were huge for a while. So we were all at the table. I found that the best place for us to do it was at the table, because they would focus more.
Okay.
But they were constantly doing little things with their hands and stuff like that. And while they were doing that, I was reading aloud to them, and we were having conversations back and forth about the content subjects that we were studying. And so, there were times where our morning time was 1.5 or 2 hours long, but it didn't feel that way. And it was still their favorite part, because they were able to do things with their hands while we were learning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is such a good point. I wouldn't have even thought to bring that up. So I see a huge benefit to doing all of the together learning early and then sending people off. I will tell you that I kind of flip-flopped that. We started together, we took a break, and we ended together, because one of my kiddos struggled with some attention issues. And it was a really good thing for me to kind of touch in and out of base with everyone. He would have been someone who finished his work quickly. Rightly so. It wasn't that he wasn't doing it. And then a lot of time would have been wasted throughout the afternoon. So we sort of flip-flopped so that I had another touch point with him. Anyway, I just think it's so interesting that everybody gets to design their homeschool. We can still be talking about the same thing, which is the benefit of multi-age homeschooling, which we will come to in just a minute. But we can do it differently for whatever family rhythms we have, and it still works. That's so awesome.
Yeah. Sometimes people say, well, like, not all of my kids are awake at the same time in the morning, or I have these kids who want to, they want to get stuff done. it was totally okay for any of my children to, if they were an early riser or whatever, because I had planned ahead and I had made their list for them ahead of time, they knew what that independent work was going to be.
Yeah.
And there were a few things. So if they wanted to start before morning time officially started, there was nothing stopping them from getting started with their school day. The only place we would sometimes run into issues was when like they wanted me to sit down and do something with them. And I was still, kind of having my first part of the day.
Well, hold on to that thought because I think that's really important. But for the moment, we're going to stop and hear from one of our awesome sponsors of the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast.
Join Apologia for the Homeschool Bootcamp, a free video series that provides practical guidance and wisdom from experienced homeschool parents. You'll discover how to equip your family for academic, social, and spiritual success. Plus, you'll discover how to build deeper and stronger family relationships. Homeschool Bootcamp covers how to break free from the public school mindset, daily planning, supporting students with learning challenges, homeschooling as a working parent, navigating the high school years, and much more. Find this incredible free homeschool resource at apologia.com/bootcamp.
Homeschooling is a big responsibility. With BJU Press, you can feel equipped to give your children not just an education, but a foundation for life. Children learn in different ways, and BJU Press lets you adapt to their unique learning styles. And you'll love the community of other homeschool moms who use BJU Press. They've been where you are, and they're full of advice, encouragement, and practical tips. And when you need even more help, there's the Homeschool Hub, which keeps families organized with easy lesson planning, calendars, and even grading tools. To learn more, visit bjupresshomeschool.com.
What makes you an expert at this?
I've been doing it for a really long time.
And I know that you have written not only some things for homeschooling parents, but for kids along this line. So take just a quick minute to tell us about both ends of that spectrum, and then we will jump back into a couple other questions.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been speaking about and writing about morning time for over 10 years now. For the longest time, we had the Your Morning Basket podcast, and you can still find the old episodes of that where we talk about this kind of family learning where you're bringing everyone together. And I've got a couple of books. One is called Better Together, which is all about bringing your family together to do morning time, whether that be you're focusing on truth, goodness, and beauty, or you're focusing on the more practical aspects. I mean, bringing your kids together for everyone to learn together is you're saving time. Yeah. I mean, you think about being a homeschooling mom, having 4 or 5 kids, and, 4 people have to learn history and 4 people have to learn science and math. And you've got to combine some of those kids to do some of those things to save a little bit of sanity. Also, we have a book called Gather, which is a kind of a coffee table picture book, which shows a lot of families in action doing this while it also gives you some practical information. I co-wrote that with a lady named Heather Tully, who is a mom of 10 who taught her kids. And she's still homeschooling her kids. She's got like 4 who have graduated now, and she's got 6 left at home. And they still have a long morning time every single day, 10 kids, where she's teaching them all together. And then for kids, we do have curriculum available as well. So, mom can get the curriculum and, spread this feast before all the kids, and it kind of holds her hand and shows her how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And we will talk at the end of the podcast where everyone can find all of this. So everybody hang on. We'll get to that. But you started talking, Pam, about the benefits of of Better Together. You said something about, it's going to save us time. So there have to be other benefits. I know some of them, but I'd love to hear your list of why this is such an important idea. Not that everyone has to do it, but at least to consider. What would be some benefits that would have them consider this idea?
Yeah, well, it's definitely the efficiency of everyone together. So you're planning fewer lessons, you're spinning fewer plates, right? And you have everybody together learning the same thing. And so it's just going to, first of all, eliminate the number of decisions that mom has to make. Everybody's learning the same thing. And it's also going to eliminate the number of hours that you need in a day to teach all of this. But the second what I think is maybe even the bigger benefit is the community and the relationships that it builds between your kids and your family. So you have this whole shared language, you have this shared learning experience, and you have an opportunity every single day for conversations together, enjoying each other's company, also teaching opportunities. How do we love each other and still disagree? Because believe me, when you bring kids together to the morning timetable to teach them all the same subject, there are going to be disagreements. And you have the perfect opportunity to teach your kids that even after these disagreements, we can still love each other. And I think that is one of the major things that is missing in our world today. We don't understand how we can disagree with somebody and still love them, you know, as a fellow human, as another person, right?
And I would add to that, each person gets the gentle responsibility of helping others through their problems. So if someone is frustrated, everybody's kind of on board with what the frustration is, and everybody gets the opportunity to either help resolve the frustration or to be an encouragement. So it's kind of like you're able to do some character training in some really unique relationship building ways where everybody's on the same team, even though they do disagree sometime, but it's all for the good of the whole family, you know?
And those are some of the biggest benefits right there, just the opportunity to teach. And just it's fun. It is so much more fun to sit with everyone together, everybody learning the same thing, having these fabulous conversations than it is for, you know, people to go off into all of these different directions and be isolated from each other. I mean, one of the reasons that I homeschooled was because I wanted to be around my kids. And if somebody was taking a book and going to their room, or taking a book and going to a different room and sitting there and studying all by themselves, I mean, I was kind of missing out on some of that opportunity to be together. Also, just selfishly as a mom, I learned so many things.
Yes, ma'am.
From, you know, working with my kids this way. And we were talking earlier about the fact that I've got one student next year and the siblings are gone. And so how are we going to do this family learning? I'm the other student and I haven't gone anywhere. So we're going to keep learning together.
I love that. And that's exactly the attitude I had too, because if we're trying to teach that learning is a lifestyle and the lifestyle is learning, I mean, why isn't the homeschooling parent in there learning as well?
Right.
Okay. So now we need to flip the script and ask the question that is inevitable. What would be difficult, challenging, frustrating, or even terrible about the idea of multi-age homeschooling?
Well, I've got lots of those.
Okay.
Yeah, we can talk about them. So one of the first concerns that people have is like, what if my kids don't get along? What if it's like constantly a struggle or constantly a fight? And the first thing I'm going to say is like, go back. And this is also relevant because another thing that often comes up is I have a 2-year-old or I have a 3-year-old, right?
Right.
So go back to that idea of what I talked about of this is the opportunity for teaching about character. It may be that the first 3 or 4 weeks you spend doing this with your family, it's all about the character training. And I'm not talking about reading them sappy stories or singing songs or anything like that. You're going to be doing the content stuff that you normally do, but you're going to give yourself enough margin that you can stop and like train for the character issues throughout that entire time. So you're not going to be stressed out thinking I'm falling behind. You're going to stop and you're going to take the 2-year-old out of the room over and over again. You're going to show them like, you have to be quiet. And there are strategies that you could use. You know, you're going to be like putting Cheerios on the high chair tray and giving them things to do with their hands and even going outside and letting them paint with water on the driveway while you're doing the read aloud or whatever. There are all those strategies you can employ. But at the end of the day, you know, the lesson we have to learn is when everybody's here together, you're playing on your toys and you're being relatively quiet enough that mom can read. And that's what you're teaching. And the same thing with kids fighting. It's like, we're going to be here together. We're going to be doing this and we're not going to be fighting. And the thing you're focusing on for the first few weeks is the not fighting, and everything else they learn is gravy. And then it slowly shifts to where, the problems are fewer and far between.
And I would say this is something you have to do no matter whether you're homeschooling kids multi-age together or not. Everybody has to get with the program, whatever the program is. So it's part of, I think a lot of homeschoolers forget that part of our job is character training as much as it is academic training, and that, they get really worried that they're not doing something right, or they're frustrated in the process of, why am I having to deal with so many character issues? And what I'm hearing you say, and what I know from experience is, hey, that's part of the process. And it would be part of the process. Even if you were putting kids on the school bus, you'd have to work on, what do we do in the mornings to get on the school bus on time, right?
Yeah.
Or what do we do in the afternoons to get the homework done? So there is a level of parenting that I don't want people to forget that they have to do. And don't blame it on something like multi-age homeschooling as the problem. Just know that you're going to run into problems anywhere.
Right. So it's a matter of solving those particular problems. And every once in a while, we come up against people who are like, this just wouldn't work for me. Right.
Yeah.
I needed to have, they needed to be separated. It was just stealing all of our joy. And in which case I would say, separate your kids and teach them separately. Sadly, I'm very sorry and sad, because it's so much fun to do it the other way. But if that's just the way it is. And back to the toddler, there was a period of time when my youngest was 13 months old until he was 22 months old. We did not do morning time.
Okay.
Because he was just all over the place, into everything. He's just he had that little toddler death wish, and, he's just constantly trying to climb on something or pull something down. And it was just more than I could take. And so I said, you know what? It's okay. We're just going to put this on the back burner right now. It's not forever. It's just for this season. And, and we just didn't do it. And then he matured and he was teachable, and we started doing it again. So
that's such good advice and such good wisdom. Let me ask you, we have time for one more thing. And I want you to share, if somebody says, okay, all right, you've talked me to trying this. What is my first step to be successful and not just dive in and feel really overwhelmed? Yeah.
Start with one thing. So start with one thing that you're doing together. And it's kind of different. So if you're doing kind of a morning time, we always tell people start with just one thing and build and expand and make it bigger. Now, if you're starting with history or science or something like that, even then, just pick one subject that you're going to do together, and really, really start enjoying the process of doing that together, as opposed to saying, well, next year we're going to do 5 content subjects together. Say next year we're going to do 1 together.
Yeah.
And you could even do it in such a way where you start a little earlier. I've always done a rolling start to my homeschool year, especially when my kids were little, where it's we would start with history, and we would do history for 3 or 4 weeks and get it under our belt before we would add science. So you could do the same thing with this. You could do it for a few weeks and then add in another subject and add in another subject as you go along until you get up. Get up to speed.
Lots of great practical tips there. And let's just reiterate that not everything has to be done together. If you like this idea, you can grab onto the one thing.
Yeah.
And see if it benefits your family. And then as it does, grow into that. So, yeah.
Can I address one more thing?
Please, please.
Real
Yes.
quick. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I just want, because there are probably some people out there who are thinking, oh my gosh, how is this lady telling me that my 6th grader and my 6-year-old can both be doing the same thing and get the same kind of learning? And there's a fancy word for it in education circles. It's called differentiated instruction.
Yep.
And basically what that means is you're presenting the same content, but you're just doing it at different levels. And so maybe you're starting by reading a really good quality picture book. And I will tell you, your 6th grader is not too old for a really good quality picture book. You're reading that picture book about ancient Egypt. And then when you're done reading that picture book, that 6-year-old leaves. They're done. They don't have to do anything else. But the 6th grader, on the other hand, maybe gets some additional reading that they do on their own. Maybe they provide you with a written narration about the content of that picture book. Maybe now you pull out a map of ancient Egypt and they fill out the map, or they do some additional research. So you're studying the same topic. You're starting from the same base material, but your kids who are older and more independent do more things on their own.
No, I think that's a great point. If we are able, I will try to link my homeschool masterclass about project-based learning. That has kind of how would you present the same information to everybody and then everybody do something on their own level. So that could be helpful for you. Okay, well, before we end this episode, and we will see each other again next time, but go ahead and tell us where they can find you and the Better Together things for themselves and their families.
Yeah, so you can find everything at pambarnhill.com. Homeschool Better Together is there, and we have all of our curriculum, the Better Together and the Gather books, and everything you would need to start learning together as a family.
Absolutely. Okay. Thanks for being here, Pam. Thanks everybody for being here with us on the Schoolhouse Rocked Podcast this week. Pam and I will be back next time to discuss high schooling in homeschool.
Thanks so much for joining us today for the Schoolhouse Rocked Podcast. We'd love to hear from you. If there's a topic you'd like us to cover, reach out to us at podcast@schoolhouserocked.com. We'd also love to know how we can pray for you and your family. If you've been blessed by this podcast, would you consider partnering with us by making a one-time or monthly donation? Together, we're making a generational impact that transforms lives and points our children toward the eternal hope of salvation in Christ. If you know a friend who would be encouraged by this podcast, please share it with them. Join us next week for another exciting episode of the Schoolhouse Rocked Podcast. Until then, keep pointing your kids to Jesus.
You're listening to the Biblical Family Network.
Hey, I'm Miki.
And I'm Will.
And we're the co-hosts of the Culture Proof Podcast. We want to invite you to join us every week as we discuss what's happening in the world and then filter those happenings through a decidedly biblical lens.
There are many questions, especially when we see what's happening in our culture today, but the answers are found within the Word of God. So that's where we want to look.
Amen. When we resist those cultural trends that rival the truth,
we remain culture proof.
It's totally normal for kids this age not to know what they're doing. And even if they start in regret, that's the coolest thing we've given them through homeschooling is the opportunity to know how to pivot well.
And if they don't know what they want to do, then the object of the game is what we call don't close any doors. Right?
I like that.
So you've got this high schooler who's unsure what they want to do. Maybe they're even a little unmotivated to do the high school things. I don't know if anybody else has ever come up against a high schooler like that, right? And you're like, okay, I'm butting heads trying to get this kid into college, and he doesn't even know if he wants to go to college.
Yeah.
So then we say, plan for not closing any doors.